All right. Hello, Facebook. I'm back for another video. And this week, or this time, or this video, I'm joined by two amazing colleagues of mine. We've got Karen Davis and Alex Mill. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Ankush. Nice to see you.
Karen and Alex are not only colleagues of mine, they're actually dear friends. And I met them way back in 2015, I believe. So it's been over 7 years that we've known each other. And we met through us both, all three of us, being on a coaching school, which was hosted by our coach, Steve Chandler. And we've kept in touch all these years. And I have a lot of love for both Karen and Alex. But recently they released, and Q, you can lift up the book, a wonderful book called How to Get the Most Out of Coaching. And I was just telling Karen and Alex before we started the recording how I was speaking to another colleague of ours last week, Chris Doris. Hello, Chris, if you're watching, if you watch this.
Chris.
Hey, Chris.
And Chris saw the book on Facebook, saw me post about it. And Chris is, for those people who don't know him, he's a fantastic corporate coach, very, very successful. And he works with one of his clients, a very large corporate. And he has, in conjunction with them, now made it mandatory that any person internally within this very large organization, before they even get to work with a coach, whether it's him or someone else, they have to read Karen and Alex's book, which I think is a real testament to how good the book is. And Chris was saying, it's one of those books that you think, why wasn't it already written? Right. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Once you read it, you're like, how has no one written this already? How come we went so many years without this book? So it was a real no-brainer for me to have this book be part of the curriculum for my coaching school. Some people have been really eager, have already bought a copy before they couldn't wait till we got to September when we officially start. And every time I have recommended this book to someone, bought the book, given the book, the feedback is always astonishingly good. And it really points to something within coaching that really took me years to understand, which is that coaching isn't something that someone does to somebody else. It's a co-creation. Mm-hmm. And so it requires both the coach and the coachee to kind of come together and create something, which then we call coaching. So welcome, Alex and Karen. Thank you for being on this recording with me. And thank you for writing the book.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been a great experience from the beginning all the way through to the reception of the book. Yeah. We've been getting really positive feedback, a lot of positive feedback from coaches, as well as anyone that I send it to that is coming into a coaching experience. And so, yeah, we're really proud of our work. We see this book as altering the coaching profession, and the coaching profession itself is altering the lives of so many people on the planet. And so we're thrilled.
So tell me about that then. So you want the book to alter the coaching profession. What would you like to have happen, both with the book and with the profession? What's the end goal with this?
Well, it's like you had mentioned earlier, Ankush, that coaching is co-created between a client and their coach. And sometimes there is a lot of confusion out there in the marketplace where people really don't even understand the difference between coaching, consulting, and to some degree therapy. So they come into an experience cold if they don't have a manual like the one that we created in terms of what to expect in terms of when you come into a coaching experience. And we really feel like we're filling that gap that has existed in the coaching profession for 30 plus years since the coaching profession's been around. So now I know from my own personal experience, my new clients, they don't come in cold. They come in and they really understand their role in terms of our program that we've co-created together. So I feel like we've filled in that massive gap that was there.
Could we talk about that a little bit? Because this is so relevant and poignant, because we've got two people signed up to the school already who have come from therapy and are looking to build a coaching practice. And we've had a question in our private group today, funnily enough, where they've said, well, what's the difference? How do I go from therapy to coaching? So this would be so relevant to the school. And I know you cover it in your book, but I would love if you would be willing to talk about that a little bit. What do you see as a difference in coaching, consulting, and therapy?
Where I'd start is with consulting. So we'll start with consulting. And because I did consulting when I first left corporate back in 2006 to 2007, and people were hiring me, organizations were hiring me for my expertise. I'd been in executive leadership positions running sales and marketing teams. And so I had very specific skill set. They brought me in to advise them and tell them, okay, here's how you set this up. Here's how you manage these people. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. In terms of being a consultant, it was a lot of heavy lifting. It was a lot of reports. It was a lot of advising based upon my years of experience and knowledge. Okay, so that is what I see as consulting. Therapy is really, in my own personal experience, where you're going back into your past and looking at those experiences. So you're moving backward in the past, working through old wounds, old experiences, that type of thing. And sometimes it's very prescriptive, right? Whereas coaching, based upon the way I've been trained, is all about here we are in this present moment and how do we move forward? So how are we moving forward in life and having that co-created where I'm evoking the inner wisdom of my client. And so my client is the one who ultimately has the best answers. My job is to really curate those questions that evoke their own inner wisdom as opposed to advise them. And then in my practice, I'd have to say though, because I coach a lot of corporate clients and I also apprentice with other coaches, there is some advising, there is some teaching that also occurs. But I always turn to coaching first to evoke the answers within. What would you say?
No, you got it. I mean, I have not worked with a consultant, never had therapy, but my understanding of it is exactly as you described. It is, one thing that I've seen about therapy is it's like a lot about fixing, and it's tends to focus a lot on trying to get to someone up to survive socialization and be able to fit in and manage whatever is going on with themselves in life. And then coaching is about creating more about, I use the image of like the going below the line, like struggling to get up to the top for air. And then coaching is more about thriving, at least in my experience. There could be a possibility that someone in therapy could actually be a place where they're thriving, but typically I would imagine they'd move on with coaching to start creating their future, making the life that they would like to have and setting some sort of goals within that.
Thank you for sharing that. And I want to kind of go back a second now to what you were saying about having this change the profession, which I love. Is such a kind of great thing that I can really relate to. So I kind of got my view on this, but I'd love to hear from you guys. When coaches get this, what you're talking about in the book, they get the difference in coaching, therapy, and consulting, and they get that this is a co-creation. Like, what sort of impact is that on the like, is this things will be 5% better, 10% better? Is this 100? Like, what kind of impact are we talking with regards to coaches understanding the role of the client and what we're talking about this co-creation?
I can address that. I mean, so for me, it's an empowerment process. So that's really what I think the book and opportunity lies for those who want to explore using the book with their clients. And that's how it's going to change the industry, is that, as Karen mentioned before, sometimes people show up cold and have no idea what to expect. And here is an opportunity for all of those ambiguous questions they may have, or that, we like mysteries when they're positive, mysteries that are kind of lead to negative experiences we tend to avoid. And so I think giving this book out to somebody ahead of time gives them an opportunity to address some of the unconscious, hidden, they don't even really know to bring up some of these issues and questions ahead of time. And so it gets somebody to the middle line, I think, with their coach. Because in my experience, when anybody wants to do this transformative kind of work or even setting goals, it's like way more effective if the person, both people meet each other at the midpoint, bring 100% of what they have to the experience and then go. A lot of times you end up spending a whole lot of time just getting someone closer and closer and closer to the middle line. And I believe that this book helps get their quicker. And so it gives the client the largest opportunity to get the most out of their experience. I hope I answered the question. If I didn't, Karen.
Let me just add a little bit there. Ankush, in terms of the folks that are participating in your school, one of the things that Steve Chandler always emphasized with all three of us was that the reason that a prospect does not sign on is because you have not created impact yet for them, right? That when we can create impact for them, they will find the money. They will do everything in their power in order to work with that coach. And so, like Chris Doris, I give the book early on. And the reason I do that is because what Alex just said, I want them to come in, understand what their role is in the coaching experience. So when I'm giving the coaching experience, the likelihood of me being able to create impact for them has just gone up 100%, like hugely. And then if I create impact, they become my client. I don't wait until after they sign, my contract. That's crazy, right? I give it to them very early on. That way they come into the experience. They already have a greater understanding, and they feel like if they're looking at 3 different coaches and one of the coaches has given them this book, well, that's who they go, well, this coach really knows what they're doing. They've educated me on how to come into an experience, right?
Yeah. I just got the image of a plane going on the runway and up in the air. And what it feels like the book does is it gets people up in the air.
Yeah.
So they show up to their session and they're already flying. And now where do we want to go? Which is, that is an incredible thing to have happen.
Yeah, I will say from my perspective, I think this has such a massive impact. The topic that we're talking about has such a massive impact. I don't think we're talking about a 5 or 10% difference. I think you're absolutely right. I think, and this is both sides, right? I think coaches understanding this, because I, as a new coach, would come in thinking, all right, I need to do something to the clients, right? Like it's all on me. It's my job to get the clients the result that they're paying me for. And if I don't, that means I'm a bad coach. And that's really not good for building a strong professional coaching practice, because it's putting loads of pressure on you. You can't do that anyway, because it's not all on you, right? And it stops you educating the client, because often clients have not had coaches before, or even if they have, they don't understand this.
They still don't, right?
They still don't. So I think it's a huge impact. And I've seen this personally in my own coaching practice, that the more I've educated my clients around how they show up, not what they have to do, but it's an agreement that we create in terms of, hey, if you want to create the biggest change possible, these are the things you can do. It's made a real night and day difference. And I'll add this. I think I'm a pretty good client. I've been working with really amazing coaches for 15 years. And when I read your book, I wasn't expecting to read it thinking, oh, this is going to change me as a client. I thought this is going to be a great book. I'm going to read it so I can give it to my clients. And it changed me, and not in an insignificant way, because it reminded me so much of like, well, what am I bringing? And there were things in there about like, there were so many things that I knew, but you guys articulated so well. And I want to pull a couple of them out. Like one of them was, don't be a reporter. Don't show up to a coaching session and just say, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And I knew that, and I didn't find the right words to articulate to clients as succinctly as you did, to tell them, hey, don't do that, right? Show up. Tell my clients, you can email me beforehand and give me an update in terms of what's going on, but let's coach on the session. And again, having your book was so easy. Like, all right, that bit in Karen and Alex's book, read that, because you're wasting your time here and we're not getting the most out of our work. So that was fantastic. But also there was a piece around bringing the thing, and I can't remember the language you used, but it was bringing the thing that's the most edgy, like bringing the thing that might make you look bad or you're scared about. That changed me. Sorry?
What's the last thing on your list?
Yeah.
Right. The last, that was it. What's the last thing on your list? And then turn it around.
What's the thing you don't want to talk about?
The most instinctive. I did that with my group recently, and because someone had told me they'd been carrying this around for quite a while. And it's interesting that event passed, and why did this not come up earlier? We could have addressed that. And so it's just so interesting how easy it is to not bring the most important thing because it's being called the most insignificant. I'll work it out on my own.
Right. No one told me this up front when I was coaching. My coaches didn't tell me. Eventually they did, but like early on, I remember I worked with so many coaches. No one said to me, hey, bring up the most uncomfortable thing. And I thought I was being a good client by, okay, I'm going to go through the list and I'll start with the easy ones first and we'll check those off. And then, we'll get to this real uncomfortable thing at the end, or even preparing for sessions, right? Like that was a big thing. A lot of what you've described in your book has taken me years to learn. And like I said, it's a benefit to both. Right? As a coach, when I understand, all right, this is how I get the most out of my coaching and I can educate my client, I can have, like you say, more impact. The more impact I have, the more likely someone's going to sign up, but also the more likely they're going to renew, because it's both ways. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about in the school is renewals. And it's funny because we even did this kind of preschool webinar. And I said, someone will decide whether to renew with you often way before you have that renewal conversation, right? Because it's the impact. So Karen, you can probably relate to this. I can relate to this. When I was working with Steve Chandler, I was like months before we got to the end of the agreement, I'm like, yeah, I'm in for another year. Right. It wasn't like I would get to the last session going, well, maybe, because of the impact.
Yeah.
Right.
You already know.
So it's such an important thing with that. And I think as coaches, I don't know what you guys did or what the process was of writing the book, but I sometimes take a lot of this for granted because I've been through that. And I forget that when I'm coaching someone, even though I've gone through all my years of experience, someone coming in new, they don't know that.
I think we've all had experiences of seeing glimmers of the kinds of topics we brought up happen in their coaching with clients over time. You'll have someone that will show up late, or they'll be, there are certain things that they can do. One of the things that early on prompted me to consider putting something like this together was another coach telling me about how, I really wish my clients would use me more, or, you know what I mean? Like take advantage of the fact that I'm available to the degree that I am. And I think that sometimes, even if you say that, it's helpful to have something there in front of them to keep referencing. Because for me, it takes several times getting this information to actually have it pop through and go, oh, you know what? I'm not taking advantage of I'm not showing up prepared for my session. I'm not. And so it's helpful also that it's almost like a third person, the book, this is third entity that's standing between. And so it's not your coach telling you all of these things or asking you to. The book is in a way there nudging you, saying, hey, here's what you can do. Here's a reminder. Here's something that you can do. And I'm hoping that it would be a resource for people, clients and coaches, to read several times over, because as they get more and more familiar with the content, more insights will arise around how this could be really impactful for them to get the most out of it. So
a coach recently shared with me, it was last week, I believe, that she sent it to one of her clients. Her client read it over the weekend. And because her client went through in such detail over the weekend with the book, she set up a special session with her client to review the book. And she said it was really good for her, as well as the coach, to be able to see what was important to her client. And her client had coached with other coaches for years. She posted a thing on LinkedIn and was so excited that this coach had shared the book with her, and that she had all these new insights in how she could bring more of her into the coaching experience. Nice. And so, hearing lots and lots of stories like that.
I think that's a great point, because I think the book can be used almost as a prerequisite to having a coaching agreement. And I know, Karen, you and I have recorded conversations on that, and I've learned so much from you about that. But I think, again, it's so important. And it's one of the things I'll be stressing in the school about having a strong agreement, setting up the way you work with a client up front. I mean, it's really such a big difference. And I know so many times when I'll work with clients, and if they might have had coaches before, they've said, we've never had anything like this. Like, we've never experienced just the beginning of a coaching agreement in such a professional, solid way. And your book just kind of adds to that process, if you like, to make it even more clear cut and even more solid.
Yeah. I was going to add to that. So chapter 6 on agreements, that also has been profound for my practice, in that, so I write it from the client's perspective, the agreements. And then when I go through the agreements, and we're co-creating the agreements, the spoken agreements, in that very first session, now my new clients are going, oh yeah, I read that in the book. Oh yeah. Oh great. I'm glad you're covering that. Oh, that's good. Yeah. I remember reading that in the book. And so it's just like, we're so in alignment from the very, very start. So that chapter has been so beneficial to my practice in the way that I practice spoken agreements. Sorry, go ahead. I was so excited about that.
No, it's very much piggybacking off of what you just said in terms of, so one of the things in my training, folks know that I train in a Zen monastery, but when folks show up to a monastery, there are a lot of questions they have about how to be there. And a lot of the inspiration for putting something like this together came from what I experienced myself while I was there, which is getting people up to speed and letting them know what they're in for, what to do, what not to do, is a compassionate process that gets a lot of this ambiguity out. We talk a lot about agreements versus expectations. And the way that we would talk about it at the monastery is expose and talk about what is so, what you would like to have happen, what you want to have happen, what is beneficial. And let's also expose that which gets between us and the kind of clarity that we actually want. The voices in our heads do so much to sabotage situations that we are completely unaware of, right? They'll tell us to not say that because that's a stupid question, or they think this, and the examples are numerous. And what we're trying to do is compassionately allow people to have the information ahead of time. So it's not so much being reprimanded or corrected, but set up for success and opening up the dialogue to ask the kinds of questions that will clarify, because clarity is one of the most compassionate things you can do for somebody who, just in general, but in an experience like showing up for coaching, for sure.
So Ankush, you recall from Steve Chandler's school, ACS, that all the coaches in that school would always complain, what do I do? My clients aren't showing up on time. My clients are canceling at the last minute. My clients are this or that. And all of that gets addressed in the book. Also, when the client comes in, they come in on time, they show up. They're just like, it's so fun now.
It's refreshing.
Right? Mm-hmm. It's really refreshing. So if there's a coach that's out there that has that complaint, they need to be sharing this book. Read the book and then share the book with your clients. Because as long as they read it. And did I send you those 10 prompt questions, Ankush?
You did, I think. Last year you did, yes.
Yeah, I might have updated a little bit since then, but I find that sending the book and then sending the 10 prompt questions shortly thereafter, my clients have said, I thought I'd read the book. And then I got your 10 prompt questions that I needed to respond back to because I haven't sent it to me. And then I realized I had to go back and read those sections of the book. It was like... Yeah.
Excellent. Well, if you share those with me, I will share them with the clients in my school, and I will look at them myself and make sure I can answer them. I'll not admit to that, whether I can or not on camera, but no, that's
okay, quick.
That's awesome. So thank you so much. I want to just keep this kind of short and sweet, but as you can tell, I'm a huge fan of the book. Everything we've shared today just reinforces why it's part of the curriculum for the school, and is why I'm going to be sharing it right at the start of the school as well, because it applies to the school too, and to group programs and so many other things. So thank you for writing it. Thank you for, supporting the industry and raising, levels for everyone, because it helps everyone. And just appreciate you guys as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ankush. Thank you. Appreciate it.